Welcome everyone to Stand on the Shoulders of Giants for AI implementation from enterprises leading the way. I'm going to turn the platform over to Keren in 1 second. First of all, she's requested that people ask questions in the chat, and other than that, please save your questions for the end. She'll answer everything at the end. And as Paula just reminded, please make sure to mute your microphones and close your cameras. If you have your camera open, that implies you have a question. I'm going to turn mine off in a second as well and turn the camera over to Keren.
Thanks, Tammy, and thank you everyone for joining the session today. I think I've met some of you this morning, so nice to see you again. And for those who I haven't, pleasure to meet all of you. So as Tammy mentioned, my name is Keren, and I lead Enablement and Value at Zoomin. And as part of my role, I've been involved in the implementation and adoption of GPT and AI with dozens of companies and our customers. And today I'm really happy to share with you the journey that these companies have taken. And intentionally, we call them giants because they really paved the way for the implementation of AI in technical content, led by documentation teams. So I'm speaking on behalf of giants, not necessarily am I one. Let me start by a personal story. So not so much recognizable, but this is me 15 years ago. And this picture was taken in a small town in Kenya, in East Africa, called Kisii. You can see it here on the map. And I think you can see from the map how rural it is. It's surrounded by literally nothing. And I want to tell you the story behind this picture, which is, until today, my LinkedIn profile picture. Back then, I was involved in a very impactful project led by Cisco to implement community knowledge centers, which are basically computer centers in rural Africa. And we went across Central and East Africa, bringing this technology, which was very basic and simple, to places that have never seen anything like that before. And we got to Kisii, and the intention was to actually build such a computer center within the school. And you see here children wearing school uniforms. So we got to Kisii and put aside the computers and the internet and everything that we brought. I was carrying a camera with me on my neck. And as we got there, the children were so curious about the camera. And I was starting to take pictures of the kids. And I'm flipping the camera and I'm showing them that I can see them right at the other side of the camera. And what you're seeing on these faces here is absolute shock, amazing happiness, joy from realizing such a thing even exists. And the reason why I keep this picture on my LinkedIn, and the reason why I wanted to tell you this story, is because even today, when we're talking about, not camera or not a regular PC, we're talking about an amazing technology like AI, I still feel that zeal of bringing something new that can change people's lives and create that kind of excitement. And I have to tell you that the companies that we've worked with and that their experience I'm going to share here with you today, and this is just a sample of these giants, have accepted this with the same, child happiness. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but the impact that a successful implementation of AI had on these companies and on technical writers is just incredible. And that impact is actually transforming the entire life cycle of technical content. It starts with how AI can improve and help with authoring content. It moves to how AI can help with content management, translations, and even QAing content. Definitely moves into how we can publish content in a much, much different way. And then it moves obviously to analytics and the kind of insights that we can get on user behavior with AI. And all this eventually comes to a customer self-service experience that is now powered by this amazing technology. And throughout our hour together, I want to show you what that looks like. So why now? Where do we stand in our industry in terms of adoption? So a few numbers to share with you. 37% of companies have already reported that they are either actively adopting conversational AI for customer service, either piloting it, started rolling it out, and so on and so forth. And in fact, the majority of usage of AI today in B2B is for customer service or customer support. And obviously, technical content plays a pivotal role in that. 59% of companies predict that generative AI would result in major disruption to our industry. And we've seen this, just now, how it impacts the entire life cycle of our day-to-day. And the companies that we've worked with, those giants, recognize that their leaders today, next week, next month, and their customers will definitely expect to hear what is happening in documentation in terms of getting ready for AI and even implementing AI. So it's definitely, the time is now to start thinking about it and to start piloting it and to start rolling it out. So let's start with the journey, and everything that I'm going to show you today is really step-by-step what the companies and our customers went through for a successful adoption of AI. So first of all, you can't really just take an AI application, put it out there, and expect it to work. You have to think about a few steps you need to take in order to even become AI ready. And we'll break it down into 3 things. The first one is unified knowledge. So AI will always be as good as the content it has to basically crawl or go to in order to provide answers or solutions. Basically, it means content needs to be consolidated in one place, and we'll talk about that, and updated for a fast, accurate retrieval of responses. Second, and very, very important, and this is something that, again, our partners have dedicated a lot of time to think about how to mitigate, is content governance. So everything related to security and privacy is obviously on everybody's mind, especially when there's a very understandable fear of getting content out there. So applying the relevant security and privacy layers on top of that unified content is also very critical. And these 2 things, the unification of content and the governance of content, basically form the infrastructure for you to move forward and actually bring LLMs and AI capabilities to your content. So let's start with the unification of knowledge. So why is it so critical for AI? Let's talk about enhanced understanding and improved accuracy, and they have a lot of things in common, so I'll cluster the main things here. Think about AI as, your co-pilot expert, and your co-pilot expert really want to become a subject matter expert on your content. He wants to know everything there is to know and understand the most comprehensive, to have the most comprehensive understanding of your content. And for that, it needs a unified base. Think about it like that. If you want to be the expert, would you read the entire encyclopedia or just part A, right? So if the content is consolidated and unified, your AI system will benefit from that and become a true expert. And this directly leads to the fact that with this kind of complete set of information, whatever responses you're going to get from your AI are going to be much more accurate and much more reliable. Again, they are based on a much more deep breadth and depth of content. Second, let's talk about productivity and ambiguity. So think about it like that. If your content is not unified and it's siloed and it sits in different places, your AI is going to go on a chase to find the answers your users asked it to retrieve. So it's going to go to one place, it's going to go to the other place. That takes time. If content all sits in one place, then you have a much more productive and faster system that is working for you. Second is ambiguity. So again, if you have a full set of content to offer AI, it is much more likely to provide you a clear and precise insight. Now, this is actually one point that I want to explain a little bit further. So AI can be creative if you set or configure the system to be creative. Let's say I'm asking, GPT a question. It's not sure that it has the right content, maybe similar content, not so much. It may end up giving you an answer that is not 100% accurate. Now, there's a way to mitigate that risk. We'll talk about it when we talk about privacy and security. But obviously, the broader the content that AI has, the less likely of this ambiguity to occur. So what does that all mean? It means that at the end, when you unify your knowledge, AI becomes an expert, it's faster, it's accurate and reliable, and it's grounded in knowledge that has the full breadth and depth of your content. Eventually, it all leads to one thing that we're all trying to get to, which is an improved user experience. So with that kind of AI system, your users are guaranteed to have a seamless retrieval information, regardless of if the source content sits in different places. If it's unified in one place, in one repository, your users are going to benefit from that. So we're going to get a little bit technical, but I'm sure some of you are more familiar with these terms and some less. But I do want to spend some time explaining what is happening under the hood so we can have a clearer understanding of how important content is. So we said we want to unify all of our knowledge. We understand for AI to become an expert, it needs a lot of content. It needs as much content as possible. So what is the problem? What you're seeing here is a very simple scheme of how AI works. We have content, different content tools, different content types. Then this content is going through embeddings. We'll talk about what that means. Then it moves to a database called vector database. And then you have your LLM actually go to this database trying to find an answer for your end user query. So again, for those who are less familiar with these terms, let's think about it like that. Let's say that we have a huge box of fruits. And you want to make sure that whenever you're hungry and you're craving for a fruit, you're going to get the exact fruit that you want. So how are you going to do that? One way is to start labeling the fruits. Let's say an orange, we're going to label it as a yellow, rounded, mid-size, sweet and sour fruit. A strawberry can be red, small, heart-shaped, sweet, right? So I've labeled these fruits. Same with content embedding. We take the content and we label it. Only in the world of AI, the labeling is not sweet, big, or yellow. It's numbers that a database can read. So we've embedded content, we labeled our fruits. Now, what is the vector database? Think about the vector database as the book of all fruits out there. So we have a book, each page is one fruit. And your LLM is like magic. It will go to the book and it would say, hey, Keren wants to eat today a mid-sized yellow, sweet and sour, rounded fruit. Then what I'm going to get, well, this is not me, but what I'm going to get is an orange. So think about it like that. Your users, when they go to GPT or they ask a question about documentation, they don't always know the answer. They don't know that they want an orange. So they ask for things that the LLM should understand the intention, go to the fruit book, and retrieve back what I wanted. Now, what if I didn't have one book of fruits? Didn't have one book here, but I had two books, one for general fruits and one just for citrus, right? And the LLM is connected to the general book of fruits, not to the citrus. So with the same intention, I may get the closest thing to what I've described. yellow, mid-size, sweet. I may get a banana. I didn't want a banana. So you know what's going to happen if I'm going to get a banana? I'm going to open a support ticket. And this is exactly what we're trying to avoid. And this is exactly why the unification of all content labeled, embedded into a single database with an AI being able to retrieve answers from this full database is so critical for AI applications. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated because not everybody should eat the same fruits. Some people have allergies, some people are, forbidden for any other reason. So same goes with content, right? You want to make sure that regardless of the fact that the entire data sits in one place, you enforce access control. So users can see content that they're supposed to see, but they do not see content that they're not supposed to see. Access control. Second, you want to make sure that your content is secured in the sense that we mask sensitive data and personal information, which is also very critical. And last, we talked about, multiple books of content or multiple books of fruits and multiple silos of content. So think about your developers now. They need to connect your AI to the content. Now, where does the content sit? We have different places, different sources, different types. This will require numerous custom pipelines where you need to do an end-to-end point connection between AI and the content, instead of all the content sitting in one place and the AI just goes to one place. So, what are the key challenges we just saw? Content is everywhere, it's siloed and scattered, and so it makes it very difficult to build AI integrations. This also may end up in inconsistencies because how would you know that the content that sits in your documentation portal is exactly like the content that sits in your contextual in-product help solution, for example, WalkMe or Pendo? We're talking about diverse formats. You're writing in different authoring tools, different schemes, and so on and so forth. That inconsistency and that siloed experience is not optimized for AI. So all the companies that we've worked with, the first thing that they've done is actually consolidate the knowledge and make sure that it all sits in one content repository, one knowledge governance platform where all the content is updated, consistent. There's a single source of truth. There's a full governance and security layer that applies to this content, and you can actually take this content and surface it anywhere, whether it's your doc site, your in-product help, even within your support and CRM. And once you apply AI for customer support or for customer service, then the AI, the LLM, will go into this one book, one place. And again, let's go back to our initial slides. It's going to be faster, accurate. It has now the full breadth and depth of your content, and it's optimized to retrieve answers. How does it look from the end user perspective? So easy. Your end users will go, they'll ask a question, it will go to this content unification repository. All my fruits are there, they're labeled. It's easy for the AI to find the accurate and fast answer, and there you go. So again, all the companies that went through this dedicated and allocated time to make sure this infrastructure is in place, because it all starts from this. If that is not something that you think about and address, you may be not optimized for AI. Okay, so we talked about knowledge unification. Let's talk about content governance, security, and privacy. Again, a main concern that we've worked with throughout these journeys of our partners. So I want to talk about a few things, starting with, first of all, we're only using curated content, right? So you want to make sure that although you want the breadth and depth of your content to be available for AI, you don't want AI to start looking for content on the web or any other, public knowledge out there, because you cannot vouch for this content to be what you wrote and what you vouch for. So there's a way for actually to make sure that all the content that AI is provided with is something that, you can check the box and say, this is good quality content. The second thing is, we're not afraid to say we don't know. And when I say we actually mean the algorithm. So one thing that has been a concern for almost every company that I've worked with is giving answers that are not 100% accurate, or what is called in the AI ecosystem is hallucinations. So what happens if AI doesn't know the answer? What will it do then? So there is something called the AI temperature. What does that mean? We can actually tell, for example, GPT, I want you to be 0 creative. I want you to be 0, suggestive. If you are not 100% sure that you have a grounded answer, meaning that there's accurate content for you to generate the answer, just say you don't have the answer. Say that you cannot retrieve an answer. In technical content, and definitely in verticals and industries, like health or finance or, any industry, technical content cannot be if, maybe, close to. So there's a way to mitigate that risk by making sure the temperature is set on 0 and there's no hallucinations. We sanitize the content, so we spoke about that. There's a way to clean the content from any private information to be surfaced in the final AI retrievals or solutions. Legal disclaimers are always available for users, so they know exactly what's happening under the hood, how search is being performed. If we're using a third vendor like OpenAI, for example, they know exactly what kind of content is being sent to OpenAI, and so on and so forth. User permissions and role groups. So again, your content may be completely public, but it also may have permissions, right? For example, internal employees may be exposed to content X, and the buyers of product A may only see the content relevant for product A. So these kinds of permission have to stay once we go into the process of AI, right? We can't have AI generate answers for people based on content they're not supposed to see. So our technology allows for that kind of layer to apply to any of your AI usages. And last but not least, very important, and this is a concern made by a lot of people that I've worked with, the training of model. And there is obviously a way, which is legally confirmed, to opt out of any possibility of third-party vendors like OpenAI, for example, to train their models based on your content. So you are the sole owner of your content, and you are also the sole owner of the answers that GPT is providing your users. Okay, so we unified our content, we have security and privacy, and now the fun begins. Now we want to bring the actual LLM and AI capabilities into our documentation. So getting started. Every company we've worked with started with asking questions. First of all, what is your AI strategy in the company, and is there one? For example, is it a centralized effort? Is there an AI task force or an AI committee that is responsible for the implementation of AI in your organization? And then you become, one group of many that are going to think about this and implement that. Or it may be decentralized, bottom up. We've worked with companies where documentation teams took the lead, and they became the actual, main part of how to implement AI, even with support, with customer experience, with marketing, and so on and so forth. Another question is, who cares about that? So bringing different stakeholders that are invested in AI, like developers, for example, like the IT group, is very critical. We'll talk a little bit more about, the connection between documentation and developers, but definitely identifying the stakeholders that are involved in any AI efforts is beneficial. Legal and security. So questions to be asked and answered. Are we going to open only public content for AI usage, or we're also willing to put out their gated content, again, based on us having very clear governance and security layers? Do we want to, or can we work with a third-party vendor like OpenAI, or there are definitely others, and so on and so forth. And we spoke about privacy and content ownerships. Another question, which KPI we're looking to improve. So implementing AI for the sake of what? For the sake of improving self-service, for the sake of NPS, for the sake of reducing support costs. So it's very clear that you understand what's the end goal, and you start measuring the impact of GPT towards these KPIs. And docs teams and developers. So I think AI has really brought together these two teams in a way that is mutually dependent, because docs team will need developers for the actual implementation of AI, but developers alone will not be able to deploy AI if technical writers are not going to be there to build that infrastructure we just talked about, to unify the knowledge, to make it consolidated, to make it ready for AI, to make it secure for AI, and so on and so forth. And I have to tell you, we've seen examples of companies where developers wanted to, MVP AI. They didn't talk to the docs team, and let's say it like that, it was not successful. They were not able to actually connect their AI to the right repository of content, and so AI failed. It did not retrieve accurate, fast answers. And last, may sound a little bit technical, but it's not. Compelling events. Your company may have a hackathon or maybe a huge customer summit. What is the innovation event that you can actually strive for? I think it creates alignment, and it also gives you a clear roadmap. Where do you want to get AI, in the hands of your users? So don't skip these questions, and don't skip that process, because it's going to help you later on, bringing everybody to the table and excited about AI. Another question, which is very important, is build or buy. So buyers usually look for a turnkey solution. So basically, they're looking for a service that will help them, buy AI in a box and get all those milestones in one solution: content, deployment, connecting to AI, and so forth and so forth. They do not want to worry about development. That said, other companies are eager to build in-house. So they want to build their own AI applications and have as much control as possible over that. But again, even those builders, usually developers, will still need your content. So regardless if your company is going to build a turnkey solution or it's going to buy one, content is going to be pivotal. Okay, so we've asked these questions, we have our answers, we know who's involved. What are we going to bring as an AI functionality? And there's a lot of options out there, and we're going to take a look at some examples. So some AI functionalities are more relevant for end users. For example, conversational search answers, GPT. I'm going to ask a question, I'm going to get an answer. Another one, which I'm going to show you shortly, is topic summary. So some of our content is quite long, and we want to help our users just get a summary of the answer that they need. Code reader, I'm going to show it to you as well. A very simple way to actually read a code in a human language. So these are things for end users. Technical writers, us, also have AI that can help us really streamline and become more effective in our day-to-day. So editorial co-pilot, for example, we'll take a look. Or enhanced conversational analytics. Think about that. You all look at some sort of analytics to see how your content is behaving and how users are actually engaging with it. What if you can have a conversation with your analytics and ask another question and ask for it to go deeper here, or analyze the content, or cross-reference different KPIs? Very cool. And last, things like editorial grounding. So I'll take a minute to explain what we mean here. Every company that we've worked with, they have their own guides as to how to author content. And if you want AI to help you be a better technical writer, you want to get recommendations on how you can improve your writing. But these recommendations need to be aligned with your guidelines. They can't just be out of nowhere. So AI capabilities that know how to take those guidelines and use them as what we call prompt engineering. prompt engineering means that you clearly tell AI how you'd like to get your answer. So it can be very simple, like give me a step-by-step answer, but it can also be very deep and robust, like here are my authoring guidelines. I want you to give me recommendations on how to improve my content based on these guidelines. So let's take a look. We're going to look at first the Zoomin documentation portal, our own documentation portal. And you can see here that I am logged in as me, Karen. And I'm going to start by typing a question, how to install Zoomin for Salesforce. Now, what you're seeing here is while GPT is going to generate the answer for me, we are always keeping the traditional search results on our topic page. We want to make sure that users know that they can always go to any traditional topic page to get the content that they need. And you can also see that there's a disclaimer that explains exactly what is happening right now in terms of how we are performing this search. Now, as we go and GPT is generating the answer for me, I can also filter it by product or by functionality. And what's going to happen is that GPT is just going to regenerate the answer for me based on my filters and based on my preferences. So I'm getting a step-by-step answer here, which is great because I asked how to, and then I have learn more. So when I click on the learn more link, I am actually referred to the origin content source. I know that the answer that I got is grounded in content that I can vouch for and is accurate. So we saw search capabilities. Let's see how we summarize topic. So here I'm showing you an example of a great company, great partner of us, Pega. They've implemented AI for their technical documentation, and they had amazing results in terms of adoption. And let's see what that looks like. So we have a content topic page here that is a 3-minute read. I want to get a very simple summary of this. So there you go. This is AI-based, very clear summary of this topic page. You can actually configure the read time for you to tell AI, I only want to have topic summary if my content is over 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or regardless of the length of the read time, I want to get a topic summary. And you saw that there's always a legal disclaimer explaining what's happening behind the scene. Let's take another look. Again, from Pega. And what we're seeing here, this blue table is a code blocker. And I'm going to ask AI to explain this code to me in a very simple human language. So I'm getting an explanation. This AI is able to read any code language as long as it's in code blockers. Again, always an explanation how this content was generated. And I can also see the code within the explanation itself. So we've seen this functionality. Let's take a look at the Copilot. So remember we said that there are different functionalities, some for end users. This is what we've seen now. And let's take a look at something that is very much relevant for technical writers, which is the Copilot. So here I am logged in as an admin because this is for internal users. This is for internal admins. So your users cannot see this, but let's say that you wrote a great piece of content. Just before you publish it as an admin, you can ask AI to give you some recommendation on how this content can actually improve. So here you go, editorial Copilot improvements, how I can make this topic page better. And again, this can be generated based on your prompt, right? Whatever you'd like this content to address or refer to or be guided by. And as always, disclaimer, what's happening here. Okay. One thing that is very important, and I think 100% of the companies that have led successful implementation like you just saw, is you can't, or maybe you shouldn't start with everything. You should start with an MVP and set very realistic goal, which AI capability you'd like to test and try and put in the hands of your users. And then, you start small, but you think big, right? You add more and more capabilities as you go. I think this is a very learning, there's a learning curve on how these things behave and how your users are responding to this. So activate features very gradually. Let's talk a little bit about how to test GPT. So all the companies that we've worked with went through a very robust process of testing GPT search answers, the first functionality that we saw. Usually how we do this, we enable the functionality in a hidden environment just for testing, and we pick some questions that we want to test on GPT. Now, these questions should really imitate real life. So it's either questions that subject matter experts bring to the table, or even questions from your analytics or from your support, really real life questions users would ask. We run them against GPT, and we basically look at two things that are critical for us to say, yes, it's working and it meets our expectations. The first one is coverage. Out of all the questions we've asked, how many answers did we get? And the second, critical, accuracy. So is the answer valid? And we also want to make sure that there are no hallucinations, but as I said, we have a way to basically neutralize that part of GPT and tell him or her to have zero creativity, zero hallucinations. So we ran a sample of queries, a little over 9,000 GPT queries from across our database. Again, this is just a sample to provide some benchmark as to what is considered safe for you to put GPT in the hands of your users. And what we've seen is that 85% accuracy and 70% coverage means that GPT is actually working well. Now, you may want to ask me now, why not 100%? We'll talk about that in a minute. So why not 100%? When we do testing, we don't just ask the question, see the answer, and say, yeah, I got an answer, it's true or false. There's also investigation. If we got a false answer, what happened? And 100% of the companies that we've worked with actually saw that GPT is a critical way, by default, for them to also QA their content. So sometimes GPT will not have coverage, not because it did not perform its job, but because there was no content there. Remember when we started this conversation, we talked about unification of content and bringing the full breadth and depth to AI. This is where you actually see if you have that breadth and depth, because if there's no content for GPT, you're going to get no coverage, right? But it's not GPT, it's content. Other investigations could be, your synonyms, vagueness of the answer, and it goes maybe to vagueness of the content, search, and so on and so forth. So doing that kind of investigation is critical. One thing I want to talk about is the first column that says gated. So we had a few incidents where we actually, we didn't want to trick GPT, but we asked a question as a user, but we didn't have permission to see the content. So we didn't get an answer, but it was a good thing. I was not supposed to get the answer because I am not allowed to see the content, which actually has the answer for AI. Okay, so we did our testing, we feel comfortable, we've done our investigations, and now we want to put GPT in the hands of our users. We're activating GPT, and our audiences, our customers, our employees are starting to use it. What's now? So very important, the process doesn't end with you putting GPT in the hands of your users. Adoption and even education is critical here. And a few things that we've been considering together with our partners. The first one is visibility. How would your customers know that you now have GPT? So obviously, going back to the last bullet here, there's definitely marketing efforts around this and making sure that you have proper, releases or announcements internally and externally, so everybody knows that this capability now exists. But you can also create that visibility through layout. And what you're seeing here, for example, is the homepage of the Pega Documentation Center, and this is powered by Zoomin, and you can see two things here. One, the search bar. So it doesn't just say search documentation, it also says, or ask a question, which gives us an indication that the GPT option is there. And second, you see that they've built a layout with a designated tile in the homepage to introduce the OpenAI search capability. So there are different ways. I don't want to take you through like all the different layouts and all the different capabilities and possibilities, but there are different ways and different language that can be configured to make sure that you make it easy for your users to know that this is an option for them to use. Now, let's talk about users' feedback. And I'm going to show you another example from another giant, CommScope, company that we've worked with, one of our customers, and this is their technical documentation. They've also added a beta sign to alert their customers. This is in beta for CommScope, for this company. And we've asked a question obviously relevant to their specific content. This is all public content. You can also go to their website and ask that. You see that the disclaimer is always here. You can see beautiful layout, and I am getting my answer. Same process as you saw, across the different examples that I just showed you. I'm asking a question that is, how do I add? And I'm getting a step-by-step guide and the link. Now, I, as a user, can rate what I saw. Thumbs up or thumb down, and I can also send written feedback. And this feedback is being sent directly into CommScope. Now, what does that look like for you as a technical writer once you're starting to see a cumulative feedback going into your platform? So let's take a look at how it looks like from user behavior to actual content insights. So we have designated dashboards and KPIs that track both searches on GPT, so how many of the searches that were performed on your content were GPT searches, and the click-through rate. It's click-through rate on the Learn More link that I showed you. And of course, if queries are actually increasing over time, which is a critical KPI for product adoption. Now, the feedback that your customers are sending you obviously will see, the accumulative coverage and the accumulative accuracy, but it's also very important for you to have a much more granular insight into what's going on. So you can see here, this is a real screenshot from real analytics, searches that had a response and searches that did not have a response. And if you remember, we said, this is not enough. We need to go back and analyze this. GPT did not retrieve an answer because content was missing or the content was vague and so on and so forth. And this is an iterative process, right? Like you put this in the hands of your users, you get feedback, then you correct some of the content to make it, again, more suitable for AI retrieval, you get more feedback, and so on and so on. So to conclude this process, every company that we've worked with have gone through this, gone through the process of getting their content ready from a unification perspective, then security, then putting the AI capabilities in a very gradual way, then putting it in the hands of their users, getting feedback, course correcting again and again and again. The impact is enormous. We're seeing adoption increasing by dozens in percentages, and this is, I think, such an innovative way for you to offer I don't want to say the future, but it's the present experience of how people actually interact with content. So if I were to tell you, 3 things to do tomorrow morning, if you want to follow these giants steps, is first of all, ensure cross-functional alignment. It is very important that if you start to lead the way and bring AI to technical content, you really take a look at all the interested stakeholders that can either help you or even use what you've done with other organizations in the company. We had examples of documentation teams that have done exactly what you see here, and the models that they've implemented were adopted by the support organization. So the docs people were the first to do it, then support, then customer success, and so on and so forth. Consolidation and governance first. So I cannot emphasize this enough. That infrastructure layer of a content delivery platform that knows how to bring your knowledge and make it ready for AI is literally a go, no go. Without something like that, yes, you can bring AI capabilities, but you're not likely to see the results that I've just showed you. So take the time to make sure that you help AI to work for you the best way that it can. And last but not least, start small, but really think big. I know that it seems like a lot, but I have to tell you, companies that went through this process with us were able to go through the entire journey of content unification, governance, and AI functionalities, somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks. And we are here to help you go through this process. So we're not gonna, start with everything that is out there. We're gonna ask the questions together. We're gonna decide what's the best use case for you. And then we're gonna, do this really together. So I started with my Africa journey and how great it is to bring new technology to the hands of early adopters, late adopters. And if you want to hear more of these stories, I'm always happy to talk about Africa, but I'm even happier to help you get AI in the hands of your users. Feel free to reach out to me and visit us. And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now and open it up for any questions from the team. Feel free to, open your camera so I can see you and talk to you.
We have some questions in the Q&A tab. First of all, Shimon Phrase asked, unifying content is challenging if, hang on. There we go. If your SMEs differ in how they describe functionalities. So even with unified content, you're going to find when you have multiple content creators. I don't see how AI can act as the arbitrator to deliver a single authoritative answer in such situations.
I'm sorry, Tammy, but you were breaking a little bit. So either you can maybe repeat the answer or the person that asked it.
Shimon, do you want to repeat your question?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, Shimon, I can hear you.
We have a situation where you have various SMEs contributing to development of a certain product or feature, and they differ in exactly how they define certain features and their operations and the results that are expected. And these differences appear in, a lot of the source documentation that the writers draw upon. So my question is basically, maybe you touched on it to some extent, but where you have so many different stakeholders contributing to development of a certain feature, and they're not exactly all describing it identically, I don't think AI can act as an arbitrator and resolve these particular differences of interpretation.
Yeah, so it's a great question and a great situation, and we actually talked about this quite a bit in the morning session where Jeff from Imperva and myself spoke about omni-sources and omni-channels. And one thing that we talked about is the fact that writing content today is very decentralized, right? You have SMEs writing content, you have developers writing content, they use different tools for that, different schemas for that, and so on and so forth. And while on the one hand, you want to keep that diversity, on the other hand, I just spoke about content being ready for AI, right? So how do you mitigate that? So when using the right content delivery platform and when you're unifying all this content into a single source, then at least, us at Zoomin, we're able to work with you to apply consistency on the content. That means that you'll have the same entitlement, the same taxonomy, the same look and feel, because all the content will be rendered as a unified HTML file. So your users will not even see that this content was written in different tools or managed in different CCMSs or whatever. The content is unified in the content delivery platform. It's a good experience for your end users because there's consistency in knowledge and also in brand, but it's also optimal for AI retrieval because we are mitigating that diversity into what AI needs. So I hope that answers your question, but we can definitely dive more into how exactly we do this in the lounge if you'd like to join me, Shimon.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, we've got another couple of questions. Rita Khait, I think is her last name.
Yeah.
Asked, she had 3 questions, which I'm going to consolidate into 2. First of all, she wanted to know which teams would you recommend to work with to initiate a project like this?
So I think, again, the main teams that we've worked with are actually, tech writers and documentation teams. They're not only so pivotal to AI because of their role in content and the quality of content, but they're also leading the way for, for their companies in so many aspects. But throughout this process, we've definitely met, they brought to the table, whether it's the company's AI task force or the CTO or the chief security officer or even the support. So do you remember I said it's a very critical question to ask, who cares about that? You really need to ask and answer the question and bring them into the process. I know that I personally have done, demos and conversations with all these people, support, CTO, chief security officers. They're all very intrigued, and they also play a role in making sure this is successful.
Okay, the other question, which, as I say, I'm going to consolidate into one question, was, does this mean that third-party AI will use the customer's data to train their models? And who generated by GPT?
So, Tammy, you were breaking again in the last question. The first question, at least for Zoomin, we are opt out of any possibility for OpenAI to use your content or any company's content to train their models. Simple.
Second part, who legally owns the content generated by GPT?
The customer. The company owns the content and also the content that is retrieved by the AI. So you own the actual answer to, right? So I want to say thank you very much to all of you. I'm going to join the lounge, so it will be great to see all of you. Some of you, if you can join for any questions or anything else you'd like to learn. And thank you so much, everyone.